Okay, we're just going to have a frozen screen. Next, we have finger rubbing. I don't know if the screensaver is moving for you. I think it's frozen and given up. My ASMR is too terrible to stand around. Welcome to the affiliate ASMR stream. For all of your terrible ASMR needs. Any sound you want me to stop, tell me. And I may stop. I may troll you a little longer. Because your ears are now my bitches. Finger rubbing. How'd you like them fingies? There's some good fingies. If you really want to experience the cringe, wear headphones. Okay, next on my ASMR list, the beanbox. I'll see if I can get the screensaver going again. These are the horrible beans that I use to punish myself every time I die in a game. I hate them, they're disgusting. Now for something traditional, a little light tapping. Oh, apologies if I hit the microphone. I am terrible. Hopefully this is the prime content that you followed for. Now some more finger tapping, this time on glass. God damn it. There we go, that might be a little bit better. Can you tell I've never done this before? Now I have a child's toy. If you want to experience what it's like to have a toddler and constantly hear annoying noises. was the sounds of a toddler playing. Now, if anybody of you are into eating sounds, or you're not, I would say to turn over, because I hate the sounds of eating. It's pretty good. Okay. That's enough cucumber. Now for some light tapping sounds. This sounds more like a racehorse than actual rain. Okay, now what? What would we like? Some rustling plastic. This is actually one of my favorites, as well as hair brushing. It was a packet of kettle crisps, sea salt and balsamic vinegar. I had it for lunch today. I don't know if I'm getting better or worse. Okay, time for some water. Does this make you want to go to the toilet? I don't know whether this is a relaxing water sound. Should I do 2 sounds at once? Do they do that? Do they mix sounds? Eating in one ear, water swishing in the other. Am I breaking new ground here? I feel like I'm gonna be a pioneer of ASMR. Double water sounds, baby. Now we have the sound of a pearl necklace. No, not one of those, you scumbag. I quite like this one. I'm so sorry. I keep in the microphone. Terrible. I quite like that one. That was one of my favourites. Now we'll go and do a little bit of ear rubbing. Ear rubbing is also one of my favourites. Is this making you want to grind your teeth yet? I hope that wasn't relaxing. And now we'll move on to the reading portion of the terrible ASMR. Today I'm reading from Matthew McConaughey's biography, Green Lights. Second in line to the privilege of my dad's methods of turning his boys into men was Pat. Over the past 40 years, while Rooster has been chasing a career in the oil business in West Texas, I have been chasing one in Hollywood. Pat has been the fiercely loyal heartist of the family, the one who's always stayed closest to Mum. Growing up, he looked to me for rock and roll, taught me how to golf, how to drive, how to ask a girl out on a date, and bought me my first beer. Pat was my hero. His was Evel Knievel. Pat's night with Dad came on a Friday in the early spring of 1969. 8 months before I was magically born, Dad was out at Fred Smith hunting camp with some friends a couple of hours' drive from home. Their night's entertainment had segued into who could piss over whose head the highest. Each man, from shortest to tallest, would stand on the barn wall, put a mark over his head, and the rest of them would see if they could flat-foot piss over the mark. Dad won when he was the only man who could piss 6 feet 4 inches high. The mark he just put over his head, the prize, bragging rights. But Dad wasn't the tallest man in the barn that night. At 6 foot 7 inches tall, Fred Smither was, and even though Dad had already won the contest, he had to see if he could piss over Fred's head. Fred stood up, marked the wall. "Come on, Big Jim, you can do it." His buddies cheered. Pop chugged another beer, leaned back, and let it fly. Nope, 6'4" was as high as he could piss. I knew it. I knew you couldn't piss over my head, Big Jim. Hell, nobody could do that, Fred Smither declared. To which Dad quickly replied, "My boy can." "Shit, Jim, ain't no way your boy or anyone else can piss over my head," Fred sneered. "Like hell he can't. What do you want to bet?" "What do you want to bet?" Dad eyed a used Honda XR80 dirtbag leaning against the hay bale in the corner of the room. You see, Pat had been asking for a dirt bike for Christmas all year, but Dad knew he couldn't afford to buy one, used or not. "I'll bet you that little dirt bike over there, my boy can piss over your head, Fred." The gang all cracked up at the proposition. Fred looked at the dirt bike and then back to Dad and said, "Deal, and if he don't, you owe me $200. "I ain't got 200 to lose, Fred, but if my boy can't piss over your head, then you can keep my truck," Dad said. "Deal," Fred replied. "Deal, I'll be back with my boy by sunrise. Don't y'all go to bed on me." And with that, Dad hopped into his beat-up pickup truck and drove the 112 miles back to our house in Ulverdale to pick up Pat. "Wake up, little buddy, wake up," Dad said as he quietly shook Pat from his slumber. "Put a coat on and some shoes. We're going somewhere." 8-year-old Pat got out of bed, put on a pair of tennis shoes and a coat over his tighty-whities and headed for the bathroom. No, son. I need you to hold it," Dad said as he rushed Pat out the door. Dad drove Pat the 112 miles to Fred Smithers hunting camp and made him drink 2 beers on the way. When they finally got to camp at 4:40 in the morning, Pat's bladder was full of potential. "Dad, I really got to go bad." I know, son," Just hold in a few more minutes. Dad and Pat, in his tennis shoes, coat and tighty-whities, walked into the barn. The boys had quietened down but were still awake. Fred Smither, too. Boys, this is my son Pat. He is about to piss all over Fred's head. They all broke out in laughter again. Game on. Fred sauntered over to the pissing wall, stood up tall, and chalked a fresh line above his head, all 6'7" of his height. What's going on, Daddy? Pat asked. You see that mark on the wall Mr. Fred's just left? Yes, sir. Think you can piss over it? Hell yeah, Pat replied, then dropped his tighty-whities below his knees, put both hands on his pecker, aimed at the mark, and let it fly. Pat cleared Fred Smithers' 6'7" mark by 2 feet. That's my boy. I told you all my boy could piss over Fred's head. Dad hustled over to the corner of the barn, grabbed the Honda XR80, and rolled it over to Pat. Merry Christmas, son. Then they loaded it into the back of Dad's truck, hopped in, and drove the 112 miles back home just in time for breakfast. I hope you enjoyed that story. If you haven't read that biography, it's quite good. And thank you for listening to terrible, terrible ASMR.